Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending our little presentation regarding filling the gap in certain areas, and especially in the health industry. But we may talk about other area in migration as well, regarding labor agreement and regarding DAMA sponsorship and other sponsored visa requirements. Can I have the next slide, please? All right. Who we are a migration law practice. We are operating since 1998. My name is Agnes Kemenes, and this is a Hungarian accent. So I always say you will remember me. What we do in migration, we mainly focusing on providing services to our corporate clients, and also providing services to our individual clients. And why we do what we do, we firmly believe that we are here to changing people's life, and this is something so rewarding. After 27 years in business, I am still passionate about offering these services to our client. And our motto is, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, a way forward. This is probably for our corporate clients. We also have other divisions as well, which is employment division, employment commercial, and property law division. So, I think employment law can very substantially complementing migration law. Next slide, please. Agenda for today is as follows. Skill shortage and pressure across care services, that's very important. High demand healthcare occupations in 2025, healthcare skilled professional visa options, DAMAS and labor agreement, and the new streamlined APRA assessment for nurses when they coming to Australia for certain countries. Next slide, please. Okay, current challenges in current challenges in everywhere in a migration scheme. Okay, not just in the healthcare sector, but other sectors as well. Usually agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, trade services. We have huge shortage, and as you know, construction is another very important industry, but mainly really today we're going to talk about healthcare. So as you can see, our aging population in Australia is driving the needs to provide more aged care services. Unfortunately, I am one of them. Okay, I am 65 years. I'm not saying how old I am, but above 65 years old. So I am probably part of this growing sector. And they require some help. Nursing workforce shortage. And I can tell you that because I recently has been hospitalized, and it was a private hospital. And unfortunately, I wasn't very happy with the services provided, also as well with the medical professionals, like as doctors as well. So I'm sure they would be very happy to have additional staff on board. Mental health workforce, deficit. I mean, that could be social worker, could be, the support worker in this space, the youth support workers, different community support workers, and certainly one of the biggest areas today is domestic violence support work. Okay, but that's all part of probably the mental health as well, and the aged care staffing crisis. I mean, this is one of a critical sector, and it's a critical sector, I think, for two reasons. One is not enough employees and not enough workers, and also probably the structure of their salary and the requirement under the migration regime. The minimum salary in migration is $73,000, 100, and really in an aged care system, there is one of the highest salaries. So having simply employing aged care support workers is probably not coming under this space. Next slide, please. critical occupations in demand and what type of occupation in needs. I mean, I briefly touched on that. As you can see on the list is registered nurses, enrolled nurses, aged care workers, disability support workers, personal care assistants, allied health professional. I think that's also very important. Social workers, psychologists, physiotherapists, midwives, general practitioner, dietitian, and nutritionist. Actually, I just spoke to someone from Spain other day, and she is a dietitian. So if anybody require a dietitian from overseas, she has a degree and a master degree in this space. So I'm happy to share her CV with you guys. And pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, okay? And even pharmacy sales assistant is available in this space. Next slide, please. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much. Okay, so first of all, I'm sure some of you are already familiar with the skill in demand list and the skill in demand visa. That is called SID 482. Previously is called 482 TSS, temporary skill shortage visa, and previously called the 457 visa. So everything is the same, but the name is changing. So first, very important aspect to remember: this specific visa class or nomination has two different categories. One is the core skill category, and one is the specialist skill category, okay? The difference between the two of them is really the salary level. So that's very important. The salary level from next week for the core skilled occupation will be $76,500, but the specialist skilled occupation will be increased to $145,000 from $141,000 from 1st of July. At the moment, it's $135,000. That's the difference. And there are two separate occupation lists, okay? Just very important to remember. And say, for example, management consultant can be in two different occupation lists. And for example, chiropractor is only available in a specialist list. But I checked previously, chiropractor anyway would require to be paid. This is just an example, of course. Chiropractor would require to be paid $120,000. That's roughly the market rate. So the $135,000, it's not that far-fetched, from the market rate. And depends also, the market rate is driven by the location as well. So if someone works in Sydney, then the market rate could be more, okay? So workers can apply for an SID visa through a regional labor agreement or a DAMA labor agreement. And the DAMA labor agreement includes a 482 or a 494, as you can see at the next space. We talk about the 494 as well. 494 is also a temporary visa that is driven by the skills and the occupation list. The difference is some occupations under the 409 is under the regional occupation list, and also in a DAMA space, there is on a DAMA occupation list and can be different to the current existing SID skill. Okay, so this visa is the 494 visa is specifically for regional areas, and it can be under the labor agreement, and again, as I said, can be under the DAMA regime. The difference between the two 482 and 494 or the DAMA sponsorship for 494 is that some of the 494, the 494 visa requires a skills assessment. That's an absolute must, while a 482 visa does not require a skills assessment. So this is a huge difference when you engaging overseas candidates to work in occupation, because the candidate sometimes from overseas has many years experience and no formal qualification. They still can be sponsored, because for a temporary visa, a qualification can be substituted with a number of years work experience. Under the 494 regime, this is not available, because the candidate must meet a skills assessment requirement. And under the skills assessment, the qualification cannot be substituted. So this is a huge difference. And if you can employ an overseas candidate under the 482 regime, that would be more appropriate, just with a number of years of skills assessment. It is absolutely important to remember that the 482 visa regime also offers number of years of employment with you. So it can be between 1 and 4 years, depends of what is your arrangement with the candidate. The only difference is really in the price of employing someone under this regime and paying the relevant Skilling of Australia Fund contribution, which can be $1,200 per year, or it can be $1,800 a year, depends on your turnover. Under $10 million turnover is $1,200, and under $10 million is $1,200, and over $10 million is $1,800. So this is something which is very important to remember. You also require the self-levy to be paid under the 494 visa regime. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Employer nomination scheme, that is usually for permanent residency, and this has two streams. One is the one is the direct entry, and one is the transitional. Now you may bring in nurses under the transitional stream, especially under the new skills assessment opportunity, where is expedite, you can ask for expedition and priority assessment, and they can be here in no time, and they don't require the NBML skills assessment, while for a direct entry visa would require a skills assessment to enter Australia. Sometimes I find if you would like to retain doctors or high-level nurses, like nurses in critical care, they would like to come to Australia under the permanent residency, and because they might have to give up some of their, life in their home country, but Australia is very attractive for them, but they would like to have the security of permanent residency. So this particular category visa is available under the direct entry. From your side as a corporate entity, you require the same documentation as you require under the 482 visa stream. You require to demonstrate your financial ability. You require to demonstrate the genuine need for the employment of the candidate, and you require to pay the relevant fee to the employee under the arrangement. We will see later on that the salary level is changing from 1st of July this year, and the salary level will be higher than it has been. But I assume that in nursing and in medical space, it is really irrelevant, the basic salary what immigration is providing. Under the aged care and under enrolled nurse, for example, it is very beneficial if the sponsoring entity would have a labor agreement approved, because under a labor agreement, the salary can be less than the base TISMIT, and also can be negotiated for age and can be negotiated for qualification. So there are benefits under the labor agreement. But when you look at the 186 permanent residency regime, it has two different attributes or two different categories. One is the transitional one and one is the direct entry. And the transitional one means that once the employee is employed by your organization and they're working with you for minimum 2 years, then they can transit over to a permanent residency. If you employed someone in a temporary visa stream, that occupation will carry them over to the permanent residency. In regards to the direct entry, the applicant would require a skills assessment, which has to be done in Australia by the Australian body, but their overseas qualification certainly can be assessed. It has to be equivalent to an Australian qualification. Sometimes there are difficulties, for example, from the Philippines, where their qualification may not equivalent to an Australian degree. So assessing them under a nurse occupation, for example, is they might need to do an enrolled nurse work initially, and once they get the registration in Australia as a registered nurse, then they can be transit over to a registered nurse position. So that's just very important to remember which country has, what type of qualification. Also, under the nursing and in most of the health sector, English language is required, especially nurses, doctors, surgeons, dentists, chiropractors. They require to pass English level test, which means they have to have minimum level 7 English in an IELTS score. Equivalent score can be in an occupational English language test. I think it's called occupational English, OET, that's what it's called. And also they have the Pearson test, which is the PT test, but their test result has to be equivalent to level 7 to the IELTS test, and each band has to be level 7. Sometimes people say, I have 7, but actually that's just an overall test result. But some of the, band may be 6 or 6.5, therefore they don't meet the requirements, okay? I think, that's the information what I would like to share with you about 186. So just remember transitional and direct entry. No separate subclass, it's only one subclass. But if the employee works with your company or your business, then after 2 years, they can transit over. They must be 2 years on a 482 visa. So say sometimes, you have working holiday makers here under a 417 or a 462 visa. If they're working under that with your organization, that would not count towards the 186 transitional, but they can obtain their skills assessment and they can definitely, be nominated under the 186 direct entry visa. One very important requirement as well, in other occupations which are not in a medical space as such, like not nurses or doctors or surgeons, the English language test requirement is minimum level 6, and again on each band. So if someone is, coming from overseas, you would like to offer them the position, then what we can do is if they don't have level 6 English, they can be nominated initially under the temporary stream, and why they are here for 2 years and they better their English language, then they can, be sponsored for permanent residency once they meet the English language requirement. And one very important difference is between the temporary visa and the permanent visa, the age. For a 186 permanent visa, the age is 45 years, okay? Now, sometimes, and I am not in the profession as such, but I am aware of that, the salary level in a healthcare sector, in a medical sector, more better expressing myself, is maybe $220,000. So if the person is 48 years old, because you would like to have someone with great experience, then definitely the way to go is to employing them for minimum 2 years on a temporary visa and transit over for a permanent residency. There is an exception under the rule that if you are receiving the above the current threshold, which is the Fair Work threshold of high salary, $185,000, then you can transit over for permanent residency, even if you are over 45 years of age. This is something very important to remember. And as I said, that's relevant to the sector where the salary is usually above $180,000 to $200,000. Next slide, please. DAMA and the labor agreement, for the healthcare sector. Designated area migration stream. This is available across Australia, but not every state and not every location. So we are for example, Sydney and the surrounding area is not available for DAMA. Some of the local area may be available for DAMA. It's each local, like as a little province or a little shire, would be eligible for DAMA. That is available on Google and on the department's website. But we're working mostly at the moment with DAMA in South Australia and in Queensland. And both regions would offer, services and endorsement under the aged care, medical space, enrolled nurse, dentist, dental assistant, for example. So these occupations are available under the DAMA stream. Where the DAMA is currently operating in Queensland is Cairns and Townsville. In South Australia, the whole state is available under the DAMA. Western Australia offers DAMA, and Northern Territory, the whole territory offers, the DAMA sponsorship. And each territory or each state has their own skilled occupation list, which, that's another topic, I think, because it's just so many different occupations and so many different requirements. Say, for example, in Queensland, under the DAMA sponsorship, you have to seek an endorsement with a skills assessment that is done by the relevant skills assessing authority under the migration regime. In South Australia, for example, some occupation, not all occupation, but some occupation require a skills assessment by the designated area approving body. So it's just a slight difference between the processes of each state, but each state firmly supporting the health sector, the aged care sector, the nurses, enrolled nurses, long as the entity who is sponsoring them operating in those areas. And the steps, I think it's going to be at the next slide, please. Excuse me, maybe. Can you go back for 1 second, please? Yes, so in a designated area, you require to obtain an endorsement, as I see that is not listed here. So you would require an endorsement, and once the endorsement has obtained for the regional body, then you can apply for a labor agreement with the Department of Home Affairs. It is an overarching labor agreement, and it's usually once you receive the endorsement, then the nomination of the person would be approved by the Department of Home Affairs. For the endorsement under the DAMA, you would require to present a business case, why businesses requiring, skilled labor force, and why is that you cannot fill this labor needs from Australia. For that, you require a labor market testing. So these are the very important requirements. Labor market testing, as you all know, it's usually done for 28 days, and it is valid currently for 4 months. So if you can obtain an overseas candidate CV and they are to your liking, then you can obtain the endorsement and do the nomination and do the visa application for the candidate. As I said, we have different occupation lists for each state, and you just have to check those occupations, what is relevant to your business. Next slide, please. Okay, labor agreements. This is very important, especially in the aged care sector, okay? Now, we have company-specific labor agreement, and we have industry-specific labor agreement. And the aged care labor agreement is coming under the industry-specific labor agreement. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, a new aged care industry labor agreement. What is the requirement? First of all, must be offered a role in an aged and disabled care nursing support and personal care support space. Okay, these are the specific occupation what you can seek the labor agreement for. Employer must be an approved sponsor and sign a memorandum of understanding with the union. Without the approval of the union and without you having the memorandum of understanding, you would not be able to seek a labor agreement. You may able to nominate someone under the DAMA because that's a different requirement, but under the aged care labor agreement, you would not be able to do anything if you don't have a memorandum of understanding with the union. Now, they are pretty good, but they are overwhelmed with application, and that can take a little bit of time before you get the approval. And the other very important aspect is that you must be an approved provider under an Australian government. So, like you have your registration with the Australian government for providing the aged care services or relevant services. What are the benefits of obtaining this labor agreement? And you can seek a number of spots, and you can seek a number of different occupation. Okay, you can also start with just a small numbers, maybe 5, and because the labor agreement is valid for 5 years, during that period you can seek a variation to the labor agreement, and you can increase the number or make the changes to the requirements. So the benefits of a labor agreement: reduce English language requirement. This is important maybe in aged care facility where the candidate don't have level 7 English or level 6 English, but they have level 5, and that would be sufficient. Maybe their writing is not the best. Therefore, they still can meet the requirement under the aged care labor agreement. Only 1 year of full-time experience is required, and pathway to permanent residency under the labor agreement. Under the labor agreement, usually the candidate has to work 3 years for the employer, and then after 3 years, they can transit to the permanent residency. Again, as we discussed, nursing support worker, personal care assistant, and aged and disability carer, which is available for sponsorship, okay, under the labor agreement. Next slide, please. Eligibility and process for new aged care labor agreement. That's the further information. Again, I discussed that before, who can access this agreement. This agreement is available for people who are in this sector delivering these services. And as I mentioned, approved by the Australian government. So you should have your registration number. must demonstrate the genuine need. As for every visa in the employer sponsor stream, you must demonstrate genuine need, and you can do that through labor market testing. Okay, I'm sure you won't find that many people in that space. Key, I just say not again. Key requirements. Again, sign a memorandum of understanding. I already explained that. Be endorsed by an approved industry body. That's also important. Commit to training of employees, and mainly commit training of Australian employees. Sometimes, I have a request from clients. They say, oh, we want to bring in an overseas candidate and we want to train them up. Okay, now if that's the requirement, because they don't meet your specific requirement on that specific skilled occupation, yes, you can bring them here to train them up, but there is a different visa for that, and it's called 407 training visa. But that's again another topic. So you can certainly do that, but not under the labor agreement. Under the labor agreement, the people need to have the qualification and the skills to be able to be sponsored. Application process: contact the relevant union and establish the MOU, submit labor agreement request with the Department of Home Affairs, obtain agreement approval. So that's the final step. Once you have the labor agreement approved, you would require to lodge for each applicant a separate nomination. The other requirement is, because the nomination is separate from the labor agreement, for each applicant, you require, when you nominate them, you require to pay the SEF levy. So that's something which sometimes can be an issue for businesses, because the SEF levy is really substantial amount if you employ 10 people. It can be $25,000, for 10 people if your organization is under $10 million turnover. The department is speaking about changing the payment, and they would like to introduce the yearly payment of the SEF levy. I reckon it won't happen because it's quite difficult to monitor this. Once you have the sponsorship nomination approved, I mean the labor agreement and the nomination approved, it's different to monitor who has to pay the $1,200 at the next year, next financial year. But what they do is, and that's available if you have a fallout with your employee and you do not wish to employ them for the period you initially selected. So you may select 2 years, and after 6 months there is an issue. You will be able to seek a refund for the second year SEF levy. So always 1 year. So if you wish to terminate the employee, make sure that you terminate the employee within the first year and not the second year, at the beginning of the second year, because then you won't be entitled to the SEF levy. But this is not the most important aspect of this whole process, but that's, yes, sometimes I have clients who come in and say, hey, can we have the refund from the department because we had to terminate the employee, and they just get a portion according the level of employment, how long they employed the person for. So that's a possibility, having a refund. Candidates complete their skills assessment, getting the registration for certain occupation, enrolled nurse, and sometimes community worker requires a skills assessment as well, but not in every, nominated occupation. Next slide, please. Okay. What is an on-hire labor agreement? The difference between a labor agreement and a normal labor agreement and an on-hire labor agreement is that the on-hire labor agreement is only available for recruitment companies or more of a sort of on-hire service providers. The important aspect and difference is that under an on-hire labor agreement, you only can sponsor people in occupations that are on a skilled list. Why under the labor agreement, the company-specific labor agreement, you can sponsor people in occupations that are not on a skilled list. So these are the major difference between the company-specific and the on-hire service agreement, labor agreement. But for the on-hire labor agreement, the requirement is that you already have a pool of Australian employees who you wish to nominate or bring to Australia. And usually the thumbs up is you would like to seek a labor agreement approval for, if you have 50 people in your pool of employees, you may wish to bring in 15 overseas candidates. So you request 15 spots under the labor agreement, usually 25%. And can be 30%. So the most important thing is as well that under the on-hire labor agreement, usually no union approval required, so you don't need to negotiate with the union. And the agreement is for up to 5 years. And during these 5 years, as I mentioned before, you can vary the agreement, and the agreement is offer different, age concession, salary concession. No salary concession is available for the on-hire labor agreement. You have to pay the minimum salary level, but the age is available, and English language concession is also available. Also available age concession if the person is transiting to a permanent residency after the temporary visa. So the labor agreement for an on-hire company is a very good tool and opportunity to bring overseas candidate. You would not be able to sponsor people directly because you are not the end user. The end user is the company who you are hiring them out to. Therefore, you cannot sponsor them. So there is a labor agreement requirement, and that is the on-hire labor agreement. And as I mentioned before, every sponsorship, because the labor agreement is nothing else in a sense, just a sponsorship. Sponsorship requires company, financial documents, organizational chart, require how many employees they have, and the standing, the general standing as a business. You require, ABN, ACN registration, company structure. You require the same under the labor agreement. So you can seek a labor agreement even if you don't have a sponsorship approved, the standard sponsorship. But the labor agreement is a little bit a lengthy process, can be a lengthy process, but because the healthcare space is so tight, they are acting much faster. The construction industry is also very tight, and therefore they assessing these labor agreements faster. We have done labor agreements in this space, and some of them came through in 2-3 months, but some of the labor agreements coming through in 18 months. So it really depends on the industry and what type of occupation you are applying for. Our recent approval for on-hire labor agreement was for the construction industry, and we requested 25 carpenters for the entity, and we have got the approval in 2 months for 25, qualified or skilled carpenter. So that's in a nutshell for the on-hire service, on-hire labor agreement. Very important aspect is the labor market testing. There is something very important to mention here as well. No labor market testing required for certain passport holders. Passport holders, for example, who are belong to the WTO, the World Trade Organization, or we have trade agreements with those countries. So China, for example, when you bring people in from China, they don't require labor market testing. Vietnam, they don't require. Singapore, Ireland requires a labor market testing, but not England. And you have the list, you can have a look at that, and then you can decide if this person require a labor market testing or not. And labor market testing has to run for 28 days, and you have to be specific for the occupation. You have to list the salary level, and you have to list the occupation. And always remember, when you do the advertising under the labor market testing, you must advertise the position with the particulars in mind, what the visa applicant would have, okay? If the visa applicant does not have qualification, you cannot say we require qualification, because if you do, your nomination will be refused. So it's extremely important that your labor market testing is done in line with what the visa applicants or the candidates would have. Okay, so that's just a hint that you should remember of. Okay, next slide, please. There is this new possibility, as I mentioned, the streamlined nursing assessment. Okay, so if you wish to bring nurses in from the specific countries, and that is UK, Ireland, USA, Canada, British Columbia, Ontario, Singapore, and Spain. Surprise, surprise. I think maybe they bring nurses in from Spain because Spain has so many British citizens living there, but I'm not sure. But, Spanish people are not the best English-speaking people, so interesting. Immigration always surprises us, and they would require to meet the existing prescription of the Nursing Midwifery Board of Australia, and they would require to demonstrate that they had 18 hours work experience since 2017. So that is a recent work experience. And certainly, except Spain, most of the countries are well-spoken English, so that shouldn't be a problem, okay? So if you can find candidates in this space or from these countries, then this certainly would be an availability and a quick fix for your difficulties, Or I don't like to use the word difficulties, your current challenges, okay? We always have challenges when we're employing people. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of the salary level, and I really don't talk about the current salary level, because from 1st of July, this salary level will be increased, okay? So as you can see, the minimum TISMIT will be 76,515. and 141,210 for the SID visa, which is the specialist skilled occupation. And the TISMIT temporary skilled migration income threshold also, as I said, subjects to government legislation or passing the legislation, but that's already passed, so it's $76,575. This can be negotiated under the labor agreement, not under the on-hire, and it can be negotiated under the DAMA, and you would receive a 10% concession under those agreements. So if you have locations in those DAMO areas, it's worth to work with that. And sometimes, depends on the occupation, the candidate won't require skills assessment. So that can be also very beneficial. This minimum salary level would be applicable for the 186 visa as well. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, that went pretty quickly. question and answer. So please, if you have any question, I am very happy to answer that. If you would like to have more information on skilled, DAMO, the DAMO area skilled list or anything specific, we are available for a private conversation as well. We offer a 20 minutes free consultation. So anybody has any question?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Moete. My second name is Garcia. I'm from Papua New Guinea. I am
Yes.
a registered nurse midwife. And now I already completed a diploma in home care, which I did it online. And I'm interested to work in Australia, but the procedures that you explained, how to get the visa and the process, it took me quite a long period of time to access this. So I want to get your support and advice. I
Yes.
also went online.
If you
Sorry.
can, could you please just drop me an email and I can set up a 30 minutes free consultation with you and we can discuss your requirements. Would be very
Yes.
happy to do that.
Yeah, yes, please. I think I'm happy to discuss with you because I've been really trying for almost 5 years and I've never had
Whoa.
an access. I
And you
never
are
had
in
an
Cairns?
access.
Are you in Cairns or whereabout are you in
No, no,
Australia?
no, no. Sorry, Agnes. Sorry, are you Miss Agnes? Sorry.
Yes, I am.
I'm
Yes.
sorry if I pronounce your name. Okay. I am Moete. Currently, I am a clinic manager in Papua New Guinea. I'm working in one of the clinics in Papua New Guinea called Pari, which is about 45 minutes driving down to Cairns. I'm flying down to Cairns.
Okay. Okay, I understand. We served a lot of clients from PNG, so I am very happy to have a conversation with you. Okay, just drop us an email, or my colleague will contact you. Okay, and then we can set up the 30 minutes free consultation. Mao, is any other questions?
I think that's it. We can end the session.
Thank you so much.
I
Yes.
do I do have a question. My name's Paul Hoppenbrower. I work for a company called QuadCare, and we are currently bringing in two occupational therapists one from the Philippines and one from Taiwan.
Yes.
And then we're also bringing in a Indian speech pathologist, but she's currently working in the UK. So we're bringing her over from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And in the latter case, so the two coming from Taiwan and the Philippines
Mm-hmm.
do not have family coming with them. They're coming by themselves.
Yes.
But the lady coming from the UK has a husband and child coming with her.
Mm-hmm.
So we would only be responsible for sponsoring her to come to Australia, wouldn't we?
That is absolutely correct, Paul. But
Yeah.
if you do a temporary visa for her, okay, you would require to do up a statement where you say you extend the sponsorship to the family members. Okay, that's not, it's a formality. Why they do this is because many years ago, I don't think your candidate would come under this ambit. Many years ago, people were abscond, right? So someone was sponsored and they disappeared and the family was in trouble. So the department would like to have an information about the family members and also that you're supporting them in this application, okay? Because if you say, hey, we only do the application for the main applicant, the family cannot come here under that visa.
Okay. And would we have to pay for the husband
Nothing.
and child?
Nothing.
Okay. All right.
This is just
So,
a formality, okay?
yeah, because in our IMI account, I'm not a migration, I'm a HR manager, not a migration agent or
Yes,
lawyer,
yes,
but
yes.
in our IMI account, towards the end of, the umpteen screens you go through for a visa nomination, I think it says something about, are they bringing family? And you say yes, and you put all their details in. And then I think it asked, were we supporting them coming or something? And I said no. So I should change that to yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
If
Lovely.
Paul, if you can drop me a screenshot, okay, when you
Yes.
do, or send me the whole app. Certainly the information is confidential, but send me maybe the snapshot or the application form, and I can have a look at that, and I can confirm what you should state there.
Okay, lovely. I'll do that. And how am
Okay.
I best able to contact you?
Is Mao, my assistant, would send you an email. We have your email address, Paul, and then she's just going to give you my email address, okay?
All right, lovely. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Paul. You don't, and I can tell you what there is a statement what you need to draft and just attach that to the application.
Okay,
The,
lovely. All
the
right.
other possibilities, what they can do is you can sponsor the main applicant first, and then maybe 2 or 3 months time, once the main applicant have the visa, then you can sponsor the family. You don't do anything for the family. The family has to lodge the application, okay?
All right, lovely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
You're very welcome, okay? Thank you. Mao, any other question?
We have one
Yes,
from Josh. It's
yes.
the question is, does Nepali nurses with experience in Nepal qualify for enrolled nurse, or and if so, what's the process?
If they have local qualification, Josh, okay, like they're not just working as nurses, then we have to check what, because for enrolled nurse, you require a diploma level, okay, not a degree level. So if they have a diploma level qualification, which is could be a degree in Nepal and equivalent to a diploma in Australia, but could be a degree level which is equivalent to an Australian degree, we can assess that. And if that's the case, and they speak the level of English what is required, then they can come on board, and they can be employed as an enrolled nurse, and they can seek a qualification, not a qualification, a registration from APRA. It's the same, almost the same as the people from the Philippines. Wonderful. Wonderful. Have I answered the question? Amazing. Thank you. Any more question, please? Yes. Oh, that disappeared very quickly. I can't see that. Yes, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for everybody to attending. I hope you learned something today. Okay. Mao, any more question?
We have one from Gloria.
Yes.
Um, I'm a disability support worker in Australia, yet finding it difficult to get eligible employee that can sponsor employer to sponsor me.
Mhm.
Can you assist?
If she sends us if Gloria, you can send me the CV of yours, then we can have a look at that. And we have always clients who are looking to employ people, then maybe we can assist you. So please send in your CV, and then we can have a quick chat, as I mentioned. Thank you, Gloria.
That's the last question. We can now end the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody. Have an amazing day. Bye for now.